You're staring out the window at the fading light of a perfect quiet evening. Across the room, someone you care deeply about is sitting there, too. They are typing on their laptop. They are completely absorbed in their own private world. Neither of you has spoken a single word for the last hour. If someone were to take a peek, they might find this strange. Our quiet living room scene might look like a relationship that is running out of breath. It might look like emotional distance. People might assume you are bored. They might think you are two people slowly drifting apart and taking each other for granted. But if you know this quiet feeling intimately, you know the truth. You know that what is happening is exactly the opposite of distance. You are not ignoring each other at all. You are actually engaging in a highly specific, profoundly deep state of being. This state is called shared solitude. There is a strange paradox here. The people who crave this quiet state the most are not socially clueless. They are not emotionally detached from the world. Very often, they are the ones who are most deeply sensitive to the social feelings around them. Most people believe love is a loud, active verb. We are conditioned to believe a certain story about intimacy. We think intimacy always requires a constant exchange of words. We think it needs shared activities and unbroken focused attention. If you actually prefer to share a quiet room, you have probably been misunderstood by others. You might have even misunderstood yourself. People might have called you avoidant. They might have labeled you a classic introvert who simply dislikes being around people. They assume you just lack the energy for real, meaningful connection. But the psychology behind this behavior reveals something entirely different. You are not avoiding intimacy. You are practicing something researchers call companionate solitude. This is an inwardly focused, peaceful state that you share with someone close to you. It is not defined by a lack of love. Instead, it is defined by a total absence of social demands. To understand why this quiet feels so essential, we have to look at two basic human needs. These are the need for freedom and the need for connection. In psychology, freedom is often called autonomy. Usually, we treat freedom and connection as bitter rivals. We tend to assume they exist on a seesaw. If you want to feel completely free and safe from other people's expectations, you have to go away. You must physically separate yourself and be totally alone. On the other hand, if you want to feel connected, you have to give up some of that freedom. You must step into a social role and engage with someone. For most of our daily interactions, this seesaw rule is very accurate. Think about when we interact with acquaintances. Think about spending time with extended family. During those times, our sense of freedom usually drops. This happens because we are constantly adapting to their needs. We are reading the room. We are managing our social performance to keep things smooth. But shared solitude completely breaks this normal rule. When you are with someone you deeply trust, something remarkable happens inside your mind. The simple presence of a romantic partner can change things. A secure, trusted friend can change things too. Their presence can actually protect your sense of freedom. Sometimes being with them makes you feel even more free than being completely alone. In these moments, you are allowed to live inside a private mental bubble. You are fully alone with yourself. You can pursue your own independent thoughts. You can follow your own interests. Yet, at the exact same time, you remain safely tethered to the earth. You are grounded by the quiet, steady gravity of someone else in the room. This is a very rare hybrid experience. It is a form of shared freedom. In this space, you do not have to make a hard choice. You do not have to choose between being free and being loved. You have successfully combined the healing power of being alone with the warm feeling of belonging to someone. Let's look at how this works on the inside. Internally, this quiet state acts as a masterclass in managing your emotions. Research on solitude shows that taking time away from other people reliably calms down intense emotions. It turns down the volume on both ecstatic, high-energy feelings and anxious, frantic lows. Being alone brings your nervous system back down to a healthy, resting baseline of calm. When you actively seek out shared solitude, you are intuitively chasing these exact calming benefits. However, you are doing it in a very clever way. You're getting the calm without paying the painful price of physical separation. You're definitely craving quiet, but you specifically want a quiet that is voluntary. You want a quiet that feels trusted. Above all, you want a quiet that demands absolutely nothing from you. Think about the sheer exhaustion that comes from everyday socializing. So much of normal human interaction is actually an unconscious, continuous performance. We nod our heads, we smile at the right times, We carefully calculate the right amount of time to pause before we speak. We constantly scan the other person's face for tiny reactions. We try very hard to ensure the other person feels heard. We want them to feel validated. All of this is a subtle but constant tax on your nervous system. Now think about silence that happens because it feels natural and close. Researchers call this intrinsically motivated silence. This kind of silence is not pressured. It is not hostile or angry. This healthy silence removes that social tax completely. It creates a safe environment where you are relieved of a heavy burden. You do not have to be entertaining. You do not have to be responsive. You do not even have to be particularly interesting. Yet ironically, this lack of talking does not break your bond. It actually deepens it. Nonverbal cues continue to work in the background. The rhythm of your partner's breathing sends a signal. Your peripheral awareness of their physical body in the room sends a signal. The shared warmth of the space itself sends a signal. All these tiny things continue to communicate safety. They show that you are responsive to each other, but they do not demand a single spoken reply. You can comfortably say less because the deepest foundation of your relationship is already incredibly secure. Finding this kind of peace, however, is not always easy. It is not a guaranteed given in every relationship. It requires a very specific psychological foundation. This is where the true depth of shared solitude really shows itself. Think about the ability to sit in total silence with another person without feeling a sudden spike of anxiety. This ability is a profound sign that you feel genuinely safe. In the world of psychology, there is a concept called attachment theory. Through the lens of attachment theory, silence is highly ambiguous and confusing. If a relationship is currently struggling with unresolved conflict, silence feels dangerous. If you carry an insecure attachment style from past wounds, silence feels like a threat. It becomes a scary space. It might signal that the other person is emotionally withdrawing. It might feel like a punishment. It might feel like imminent rejection is coming. In those tense moments, silence is not shared solitude at all. It is just two people holding their breath in fear. This tense silence leads to emotional suppression. You swallow your true feelings just to keep the peace, or you brace yourself for an emotional impact. That kind of dynamic only breeds further distance. It creates deep dissatisfaction in the relationship. So, who are the people who genuinely prefer and thrive in shared solitude? They are the people who can tolerate closeness without needing constant verbal reassurance. They do not panic when the talking stops. They do not interpret a pause in the conversation as a sudden loss of affection. Simply put, they have learned how to trust the quiet. This is not just about being a simple introvert. In fact, studies show that being a general introvert does not reliably predict whether you will prefer this kind of healthy, chosen solitude. Instead, this preference is driven by something called dispositional autonomy. Dispositional autonomy is a stable, internal sense of self-direction. It is an inner compass. It allows you to maintain your own psychological boundaries easily. Because of this, you do not feel swallowed up or erased by the other person. You also do not feel abandoned by them when they are quiet. It is a quiet, steady confidence. It is the deep knowing that your bond still exists, even when it is not being loudly performed for all to see. Now, we do not live in a society that is built to reward silence. Western cultures, in particular, carry a very heavy bias in favor of talking. We are completely surrounded by cultural rules that equate constant conversation with emotional maturity. At the same time, our culture views quietness with deep suspicion. Society often quickly labels quiet people as cold or dysfunctional. Because of these cultural rules, your preference for shared solitude might be constantly misread by others. When you simply ask for a quiet evening together at home, a partner might misinterpret it. They might see it as a painful rejection. They might feel the sharp sting of what researchers call a loneliness. A loneliness is the frustration you feel when you need more connection, but your partner is seeking a private mental space. It can also happen when you want private time, but your partner wants constant connection. It is a difficult mismatch in needs. If you are someone who deeply values shared solitude, you have probably spent a lot of time questioning yourself. You have likely spent years wondering if you are simply too detached from other human beings. You may have worried about your desire to just read a book in the same room as someone you love, rather than talking to them endlessly. You might have feared that this desire means you are failing at real intimacy. But your preference for quiet togetherness is not a deficit in your social skills. It is not a flaw in your personality. Instead, it is a highly sophisticated emotional adaptation. It is a rare ability. You have the ability to construct a peaceful sanctuary in your life. Inside this sanctuary, you can honor your own deep need for mental privacy. But even while you do that, you keep the door completely unlocked for someone who matters to you.